There's no reason why that couldn't be your story.
You don't have an expiration date.
I love that.
The actual pages. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This is the Authors and Agents podcast. Ingrid, I'm super happy to have you here with me today to be able to pick your brain and to learn a little bit more about you. So you have your book, Not You Again, coming out July 9th. So exciting. Can you give me a little blurb on that one?
So, Not You Again is essentially a wedding dress designer who had a client kind of back out at a crucial moment, like a pivotal moment in her career, and she needs some money for Fashion Week. So she discovers that there's a reality show filming in town. It's called First Look at Forever. It's very closely related to Married at First Sight. And she walks down the aisle thinking, oh, well, when I get divorced, there's a clause in the contract that says I get $100,000, and that's the money she needs. And she doesn't believe in love, so that should
Perfect.
be easy, right? Yeah. And then she walks down the aisle, and her groom that the matchmakers have planned for her is actually her ex from college, like the big one that she never got over.
Oh, no.
And he's just as surprised to see her, and then chaos ensues.
Oh my gosh. Just like everything good that you want in a romance novel. Those are all the great tropes.
Yes, it was. I'm such a reality TV fanatic. It was one of those ideas that I had to write.
I love it. The people, I mean, I went through my reality TV phase. I feel like my brain doesn't have the bandwidth for it right now. But my mom loves all of those, Married at First Sight, 90 Day Fiance, all those ones. And I am just like, how could somebody actually sign up for that?
And
But to be able
that was such a big part of developing my characters, was like, oh my God, who would even do this?
yeah.
In the first place, who would be just, willing to put it all on the line like that? And so that was like where I started with my character development. And obviously we're a few rounds from the very beginning of character development, but it turned out pretty good.
Oh, that's so exciting. Well, this is going to be your debut, correct?
Correct.
That's so amazing. What a accomplishment, what a milestone. So tell me a little bit about your journey to this point to having your debut come out into the world.
Oh, where to start? I started seriously pursuing writing romance in July-ish of 2019. So we're looking at almost exactly 6 years from when I really wanted to get out there and do it, if that gives you any hint of a timeline.
Right.
This book, of course, I did not start writing until 2022, I believe. In actually almost exactly in April, I think it was in 2022. So we were very close to all these milestones for this book. But it took me, I wrote an entire manuscript when I first started writing to kind of get a feel for the genre as a writer. I ended up not querying that one at all. It just it didn't feel right to me. So that one's shelved. Maybe it'll come to life later. And then I wrote right as the world was shutting down in 2020. I needed this lighthearted book. I work in healthcare, so I needed an escape, right? So I had this idea about these two bar trivia rivals that get snowed in, and they're stuck there for a weekend. And that book, eventually I queried it, and I got my agent with that book. It unfortunately didn't sell on submission, which is a really typical story of first books that are picked up by agents. I wrote another book in the meantime, and then we ended up deciding to pull that one because I actually put a tweet out about this particular book, this Not You Again. Every once in a while, there is a trend that goes around on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
about doing the the premise of your book in the "Am I the a-hole?" style of Reddit post.
Yeah.
And I thought it sounded fun. I was just trying to have fun with my writing at that point. And so I threw a tweet up about my book in that format. And mind you, at this point, I hadn't written more than 10,000 words. Like, the story only existed in my head. um, and I woke up the next morning to a DM from an editor who said,
Perfect.
I want the book. Have your agent call me. Which was like insane, right? After years of rejection, suddenly a tweet, right? um, and it was at that point the book hadn't been written, so I had my agent talk to her and say, hey, it's going to be a while. She ended up waiting a total of 8 months or so for that book for me to finish writing it, because I
Wow.
struggled. I was dealing with some postpartum depression during that time, and like, I don't know, do I want to trash this book? Do I care this much? Is this it? Is what I even want? I'm
Right.
very lucky. I had a lot of writing friends close to me that were like, no, you have to do this. This is what you want. This is what you've been working for. So yeah, I pulled
Wow.
it together. I sent it to her. And eventually I ended up signing with the editor that slid into my DMs.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever heard of that happening to like get your book deal, right? I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so bizarre when it happened. I actually like turned around and texted my writing friends, and I was like, is this normal? Is this legit? And of course, my publishing is all like, it's very small in a lot of ways, and it turned out that my agent and this editor had worked together during RevPit a few years prior, so they already knew each other and they were excited to work together. So it was a very small world, kind of serendipitous moment, I think.
Oh, I love it. That is so exciting. And I am so, looking forward to reading it and seeing how this goes for you and just like watching and being able to cheer you on for it. So, what is something you hope readers take away from this story, Not You Again?
I think mostly I want people to take away that second chances are possible. Mistakes are not a death sentence. They're not forever. As long as you're willing to confront, the things that make you, the things that you were afraid of, that you ran from the first time, and open up to the possibility of something new and exciting and, maybe more perfect than you thought it could be. That, we're all human. And
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, that, no one needs to be perfect to find that kind of perfect love in their life.
Oh, I love it. I love romance books. I literally could read them all day, every day, and never be like dissatisfied.
Yeah. Yes, they're
when
very
when you're
they're
reading,
very just uplifting.
they are so uplifting. When you're reading for pleasure, Ingrid, who are some of your favorite authors to read?
I read a surprising amount of historical romance in my free time. I love Courtney Milan. I love Sarah McLean. Joanna Shoup is a favorite. And I also read a ton of poetry, which I don't think people maybe know about me. My favorites are, I love Nayyirah Waheed. She's done some really beautiful work. Salt is my favorite of hers. And then I also really love Nikita Gill and Andrea Gibson. I find myself just like reading, like returning to some of their poems over and over and over again. I actually have like an entire section on my bookshelf that is just poetry, because I find that sometimes poets say things in such a succinct way that captures exactly what you were feeling, but you had no idea how to put it into words. Um, and so I find that to be more of an inspiration, not necessarily for my own prose, but to kind of get those creative feelings going, to be like, oh yeah, this is art, like this is what it does. This is how it
Yeah.
makes people feel. Okay, I can do it. Yeah. So yeah, those are some of my favorites. And in the contemporary world, I actually love I've loved Lucy Score for a long time before she became like the biggest author in the world. um, and I really love Catherine. Really love Catherine Nolan, who publishes under the same publishing company. And yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, honestly, there's so much out there. If you ask me tomorrow, I will have 10 different authors for you.
Which is good. There's definitely places to share the love, right? I love this question just because it's like there's people listening who maybe haven't heard of those authors, and now there's more love for them and new readers.
Yeah, no, it's very, and I always am so excited to get recommendations, especially of authors that I'm like, I've never even heard of that person. And,
Yeah.
there's another new amazing talent there for me to just enjoy.
Yes, I love that. That's one of my favorite things about just like shouting about good books to people.
Yeah. Yes.
So looking back on your writing journey, your author journey, what is some advice you would share with aspiring authors?
Um, the biggest thing for me is to not be afraid. I talked myself out of writing I've been writing since I like the first conscious story I remember creating was in elementary school. And that was the first time I kind of really fell in love with creative writing. And, I loved writing. I'd stay up late in high school handwriting these stories in spiral notebooks,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
will never see the light of day because they're not very good. But, like it was a creative outlet for me. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that it was impossible to become a published author. And I'm not sure where that came from, but my advice to people starting out would be don't be afraid. Put your, just jump in. I didn't know anything at first, and I learned how to write a better story. I met people who were on the same path as me. I learned important things and challenged myself. And I'm here now because I kept, well, mostly because I'm stubborn. Let's be honest. I refuse to give up until I achieve what I want to achieve. So I'm like, I literally, when I started writing in 2019, seriously, like I said, I'm going to do this. No one's going to stop me this time. I'm going to do it. I gave myself until the end of 2025. I said, if I haven't
Mhm.
gotten anything published by the end of 2025, um, you gave it your best shot. It's okay to step back, and here we are. It's mid 2024. And it's coming. So, stubbornness goes a long way.
Yes, I think you sort of have to be stubborn to like fight for this dream, right? And to do this because it's difficult and it comes with its ups and downs and challenges. And yeah, you have to be like headstrong and stubborn about it. So I'm glad you gave yourself that time frame and you beat it. So you're good. You're well within the good effort time frame.
Yes. And now the question is, what's next, right?
Yes, yes. So exciting. Well, Ingrid, when you're writing, you're in the thick of it, what is the thing you most enjoy about the actual act of writing? And then what is the most challenging thing about writing for you?
The thing that I enjoy the most is just this magic of pulling a story out of the ether. Like, I never know exactly when an idea is going to hit me or where it's going to take me. And I just love kind of making something out of nothing and exploring these these pieces of me. So in every single character there's a piece of me, um because I'm exploring these concepts and ideas and feelings and kind of my ideas about the world with my characters. And of course, as they develop into their own people, the more I get to know them as characters, it really begins to teach me stuff too as I'm writing. I start to, really get meditative about lessons about life and love, which is, I find really enjoyable. The hardest part is when you're in the thick of it. Sometimes you feel so lost. It's very, that like for me, that first 10,000 words is always just, what am I doing? Where am I going? Is this even going to work? Um, and one of the things that I found that really helped me with that, aside from having friends who encourage you no matter what you're writing, they're like, I don't even know what it is, but I bet it's great, um, is to Alicia Thompson wrote this great newsletter on journaling about your writing process. And I found that to be a very helpful way for me to track how long things were taking me for the business end. And then also the creative end, I get to write down some of my favorite quotes and how I felt that day. And then I can kind of look back on all of my stories that I've taken notes on and say, oh, yeah, this first 10,000 words always kind of sucks. You have no idea where you're going, but you figure it out in the end. So, yeah, and it's very difficult to be in the thick of it and not know where you're going and if it's even good. And I'm someone that has to have a book finished before I can send off pages to readers because I write out of order. I'm that chaos demon.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm so I'm like, I gotta have a whole book before I can send anything off, which means I'm swimming around in just the dark. Like, what am I doing? Is this even good? And I don't know until somebody reads it and can tell me, no, this is better than you thought it was. And it's almost always better than I thought it was. So,
Right.
which isn't to say I don't need edits or anything like that, but it's not nearly the crap pile that I thought it was when I was writing it. So that's difficult to remember.
Oh, it's difficult to remember. And I'm with you. I'm that chaos demon too who writes out of order. Usually an idea comes to me like 60% of the way through the story, and that's where I start. And so my first 10,000
Yep.
words are usually like part there, part at the beginning. And so I'm definitely in that like, what is happening? What am I doing?
Right.
And it takes a while to get into that flow, which is definitely so challenging to like wrap your head around. But yeah, you need those friends who are like, it's not garbage. Keep going, keep going.
Yes. And I've always been a chaos drafter, even when I was younger and in high school, just writing random scenes in a notebook. And it's taken me a long time to really fully embrace that that's just my creative process. And I think that that's important for other writers to know who may be listening, is that just because your process doesn't look like note cards on a corkboard or a beautiful 10-page outline, that it's still valid and you still end up with a book at the end of the day. I have some writing friends who will not start drafting until they have a 10,000 word outline. And while I look at that and go, what? I could not. Um, they function that way. And guess what? We both end up with a book at the end of the day. So, I think it's important to recognize that if that's how your brain works, just run with it and trust the process.
Definitely. I think we're told so often, and you can go on Google and there'll be 10 different ways on how to best write a book and how you should start and how it should look. But I think you're totally right. Like, embrace your process if it's what works for you. Don't compare it to other people or authors who are crazy bestsellers. Like, I have, like you said, like, being a chaos demon writer is what works for me. It's the only way I can get into the story and get the flow and know what's happening. I am not that person either who's like, I need to write a whole entire outline and know everything that's going to happen. Like, for some reason, it takes the fun out of it for me. But other authors, that is what
Right.
they need. And you're totally right. You got to embrace it and just like be okay with it.
Right. And it's like, and I've actually had my intense plotter friends be like, I don't know how you do that. How you sit down and you just write a scene with these fully fleshed out characters and a conflict, like on you just day one at the midpoint. How do you do that?
Yep.
So like, I think it's important to recognize that we have our own superpower in being chaotic.
Yes, we definitely do. Well, Ingrid, if you were to genre hop, if you were to write something totally different, what is a genre you'd like to try writing?
I've thought about this one a lot, just because like I've so enjoyed writing romance. I'm like, oh my god, what would another genre be like? And I think that if I were to genre hop, the first move would be thrillers, and I feel like that's a really
Mm.
common answer, maybe because they're on the rise right now. I don't know, but I find them to be very similarly paced to romance, and they're very quick. They have specific beats that happen at specific times, but they're also page turners, right? Like you get to weave this mystery, and you get to, because the thing about writing rom-coms is I enjoy them. I have a really good time, and I don't believe that rom-coms need to be light and fluffy only. But with thrillers, you really get to explore kind of the darker side of a person's psyche and like, like really start thinking about how can I terrify people. And every once in a while, I just am like, I'm in a dark mood. I want to write something dark and scary. So I don't know, maybe one day you'll see a thriller out of me. Um, and then the second genre that I would think would be, I'd probably try to do something nonfiction, which, again, that sounds odd for a romance writer, but I have always really loved researching things in super depth and, really deep diving and like distilling down what I've learned and sharing that with other people. So I don't know, you might also see nonfiction out of me one day. Who knows?
Do you have something that you've like lately like loved to research and find out more about?
Lately, I've really been into. So I grew up in a very Christian kind of religious environment. I went to a private school, and all of that up until I was 14. And so lately, I've been kind of really interested in like reading all of these other stories about deconstruction and kind of what goes on behind the scenes with some of the more intense. Like IBLP and the Gothard stuff and one of the Duggar kids recently released her memoir, and it was just like
Yeah,
so
yeah.
interesting to me to read behind the scenes, like, oh, this is what was portrayed on TV, but this is what was going on behind the scenes. So I've really been kind of diving into some of those lately, you know just picking up those kind of memoirs, and learning a little bit more about that world. And I learn a little bit more about myself when I read and kind of where some of my beliefs come from. And, it's a good reminder of like all the things I don't want to do for my children. And, it's, um, I firmly believe that like the more you learn about the world, the more you learn about yourself. Right. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm enjoying learning about this brush with religion and how close I was personally to some of this stuff, even if it was by sheer accident. It's just interesting for me to learn about.
I love it. Yeah, I think that there's so much um maybe fun isn't the right descriptor. I love learning and like deep diving. Sometimes my husband's like, whoa, rein it back. But like I can put like horse blinders on about things and be like, I want to know everything about this right now. And I get a little like, laser focused with it. But I think that can be really interesting. And you're definitely right. The more we learn about the world and the different things, the better. Wow, awesome, Ingrid. I only have a few questions left for you. I'd love to know throughout your author journey, who have been your biggest supporters?
I have been very fortunate to have a lot of people in my life and on my team. And I would have to say probably like my number one biggest supporter is my husband. And I know that's such a cliche answer, but when it comes down to the day to day of writing, this is like, how do I get my 2-year-old off of my lap long enough to write a paragraph, right?
Yeah.
And he is very good about giving me that time. And he's actually only just now reading my writing for the first time now that it's coming out as a book. And I often, remind people that reading someone's writing is not the only way to support them. My husband has allowed
Yeah.
me time and space, and he has held me while I've cried over rejections. And, I think it's very important to acknowledge that he's been such a huge support, and I couldn't have done this without his support. um and in addition, I also have some really close writing friends that I talk to every day about everything and nothing, and sometimes we talk about writing, sometimes we talk about how someone's got an old pipe in their house that burst and they need to repair it. It's nothing, I would say, remarkable, but having such a close group of friends that knows what this industry is like, um and has been through it with you, I think is really important to have those people around too. Because, while my husband can console me when I'm down about something, it's very different to have someone who understands the whole, just the microcosm that is publishing. Um, when something happens, it's just, I can't explain it other than you need to know it to really fully understand the impact of something.
Definitely. I think you have to have those biggest supporters in those circles of your life, right? Like at home, helping support you and in all of that, because it can be I mean, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort put into staring at your computer, writing and
Yes.
revising and all of that. And so to have your husband, although maybe it's a cliche answer, I think it's a great answer if that is really all that he's doing behind the scenes. I mean, that is like crucial to your success and your ability to do it. And then you're totally right to have the people
Yes.
who are in the industry and who are like, I feel you, I know exactly what that's like is so helpful.
Yes, all around. I think just building that support system is just such a wonderful thing for first time, people who are getting into this world for the first time. And you might not get it right on the first try. You might have to meet a few more people, but you will find them and like hold them close when you've got them.
Yeah, yes, you will. Well, I'd love to know, Ingrid, what your favorite book is right now. This is not your favorite book of all time. This is not the best book you've ever read. This is just a book you've read recently that you were like, wow, that was so good. I want other people to know about it too.
I am currently reading Courtney Milan's The Marquis Who Mustn't. And I am obsessed. I'm just like massively obsessed with this book and how it's such a masterclass in how to hook a reader on the first page and present the premise and, create conflict right out of the gate and slowly reveal information. And it's just I'm so impressed with it, which, it's Courtney Milan. I don't know how you could not be impressed. But this so far is one of my favorites of hers for sure. I'm just like, if I could stay up past 8 p.m., I would definitely finish it in a night. But because I'm reading in like 30-minute spurts these days, it's like, well, eventually I'll finish it, but I'm obsessed with it. Yeah. So I think everybody should pick it up, especially romance writers. I think it's enjoyable as regular fiction, but as a romance writer, I'm just in awe of how much she managed to fit in one chapter. I'm amazed.
Oh, I love it. And you know what? The fact that you have to read it in like chunks just elongates the time you get to spend with the story, and that is good, right? Like you can drag it out, but that's good. You don't have to let it go and have that like immense book hangover afterwards when you like devour a book in a day.
Right. Right. Yeah. I get to live in this world with these characters for longer, which is, also really fun. So,
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that, Ingrid, and everybody add that one to your list. And make sure to add Not You Again, coming out July 9th, to your list. I'm so excited for you, Ingrid. Have your debut come out is such a milestone, and I'm really hoping that this goes wonderful, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
thank you so much for having me and for being a part of this magical debut experience.